The worst guest we've ever had, because people used to ask me who the worst guest was.
Yes, always.
And I never had an answer, because you don't want to offend anyone.
Yes, of course.
But then I can now say it's Harvey Weinstein, because he was on the show.
Really? And was he a bad guest?
Apparently, yes.
Graham Norton eventually came clean at 62, after working with some of showbiz's biggest names for decades. The quick-witted chat show legend has shown how astringent his tongue is by naming the 6 celebrity visitors he really couldn't get on with. Ranging from tantrums off-camera to embarrassment-making interviews, Norton let rip. And yes, some of these stars will shock even his most devoted fans. Mark Wahlberg. When it comes to late-night television, The Graham Norton Show is known for its lively, playful atmosphere where celebrity guests share stories over drinks and plenty of laughs. But in 2013, that familiar charm turned awkward when Mark Wahlberg showed up and delivered one of the most uncomfortable segments in the show's history. An appearance still discussed and dissected over a decade later. The drama started even before filming began. Wahlberg came in clearly drunk, his attitude already a sign that things were going to get chaotic. While some challenging guests are reserved, bored, or remote, Wahlberg was not, too needy to be the center of attention. He bulldozed over discussions, cracked off-color jokes, and appeared oblivious or unconcerned about the tense atmosphere clouding him. As the show went on, the drama intensified. Wahlberg kept interrupting his other guests, including comedian Sarah Silverman, with erratic, at times crude comments that left both the audience and the panel second-guessing whether to laugh or wheeze. Silverman, who has experience dealing with cringeworthy comedy, attempted to keep up a good-humored facade. She smiled and went along, but even she was unable to completely suppress her discomfort. Wahlberg's antics crossed from goofy to annoying, sucking the set of its normal good-humored flow. One of the most odd moments came when Wahlberg literally intruded into host Graham Norton's personal space. In what appeared to be a tipsy joke, Wahlberg jumped on in Norton's lap, mumbling his words as he put an arm around the visibly uncomfortable host. The crowd laughed uneasily, not quite knowing if this was an intended bit or a disturbing lack of personal space boundaries. Norton, ever the consummate pro, attempted to maintain a light tone and get the show on the road, but his physical demeanor spoke volumes. He was stiff, guarded, and clearly attempting to prevent the situation from further derailing. Norton subsequently spoke about the incident honestly, commenting about Wahlberg. He was just out of it. Really out of it. And that summed up the evening perfectly. What should have been a charming, light-hearted episode turned into a case study in celebrity misjudgment, where charisma clashed with too much drink in front of a live audience. Wahlberg did subsequently admit his actions, though with a sort of casual self-deprecation. "I had a couple of drinks first. I was having too good a time," he told a later interview. His voice implied that he didn't take the moment as seriously as others, playing it off as a night of carefree excess. Not everybody was so indulgent. Although some viewers found the entire experience weirdly enjoyable, peak cringe comedy, others criticized it as insulting, not only to Norton, but to all those on the couch. This was more than a celebrity embarrassing himself. It was an occasion when the usually buoyed Graham Norton program, with its effortless host and easygoing atmosphere, struggled to keep its head above water. Norton was forced to pull every trick out of his bag to maintain the show's momentum, changing subjects, dodging mayhem, and attempting to allow the other guests some room to contribute. The aftermath left a lasting mark. For Norton, Wahlberg's inebriated shenanigans were more than just memorable. They were a proving ground for his skills to handle live pandemonium. For Wahlberg, it was a wake-up call that his charm does not always register when unbridled. And for television viewers, it was a memorable episode that walked the fine line between humorous and cringe, leaving them to question, was this great TV or a star going off the rails in real time? Either way, it's now a part of late-night legend. Evidence that even veteran hosts can be caught off guard by a guest who likes the green room bar a bit too well. Mickey Rower. The Graham Norton Show has a reputation for transforming formal celebrity interviews into pleasant, enjoyable group chats. No matter if a guest is shy, aggressive, or erratic, Norton typically manages to draw out a laugh, an anecdote, or at least a smile. But in one embarrassingly unforgettable episode, even Norton's veteran charm couldn't save the mood because Mickey Rourke just didn't want to be there. Rohr's entrance was stark contrast to unruly patrons such as Mark Wahlberg, whose inebriated behavior at least maintained momentum. Rohr, however, put the brakes on the energy. As soon as he took the stage, something seemed amiss. Wearing his trademark offbeat fashion, sunglasses in the house, and his small dog Loki curled up at his lap or within reaching distance, Rohr spoke little to the audience or to anyone else sitting on the couch. When Norton started questioning him, he got brief, mumbling responses and sketchy stories that had the audience not knowing whether to laugh, wait, or recoil. Rohr's answers were so brief, often, that Norton had to reiterate or rephrase the questions simply to break the silence. In one part, Norton attempted to make a joke regarding Loki being on the red carpet, and Rohr just responded with yes. And I was also hoping she peed a great deal there, but she did not. The joke elicited some laughs, but it was apparent that Rohr wasn't kidding in a way that would encourage friendly teasing. Another guest attempted to relate by speaking about her own dog and even suggested showing Rohr a picture, trying to elicit some sort of excitement. The exchange was a dud instead. Rohr nodded slightly, hardly participating. He seemed to be there physically, but mentally somewhere else. Norton, usually good at guiding the conversation and coaxing guests out of their shells, found himself doing all the heavy lifting. He smiled, experimented with new angles, and grasped for any hook, movie roles, awards, personal anecdotes, but Rohr was not interested. The disconnection was particularly jarring given Rohr's checkered past and larger-than-life personality. Audience members were anticipating raw, perhaps even unruly energy, but were instead presented with somnolence. It wasn't so much the words or lack of words that made the piece hard to watch. Rohr's nonverbal messages spoke volumes. He slumped way back in his chair, arms crossed or loosely waved, frequently looking off camera or down at his dog rather than interacting with the host or other guests. He almost never made eye contact and sometimes seemed to be waiting for the clock to tick down until he could vacate the area. For Norton, the task was daunting. Although he's had his share of awkward visitors over the years, Rohr's combination of low energy levels, cryptic answers, and apparent lack of interest created this interview as one of the most tense. The tension was palpable as Norton struggled to keep things going, occasionally swiveling to other guests or completely switching to inject some energy. In contrast to a crazy guest whose volatility generates a show, Rohr's non-involvement left a void. It wasn't dramatic or contentious. It was simply uncomfortable. There was no cathartic meltdown or foul mouth, but rather a plodding, sloggy conversation that never really took flight. The irony is that Rohr is famous for having a passion, and it's most notable when it comes to his dogs. His relationship with Loki, whom he famously tearfully spoke of in an awards ceremony, is well known, and Norton obviously hoped this emotional connection would spark the conversation. But even this